Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next to last session of CME Palooza. I am Derek Warnick. There's a reason I'm on here by myself because I'm going to do a big reveal of everyone. But first, let me bring up the slides. Okay, so this is our Be Curious, Not Judgmental of Your Data, aka the Ted Lasso session. Sponsored by Clinical Education Alliance. Organizer is Michelle Skidmore, who I will turn from Archimedics, who I'll turn things over to in a minute. But first, let us go through the sponsors as usual. So, our gold sponsors: Haymarket Medical Education, Med Learning Group, Projects and Knowledge. Our silver sponsors: Academic CME, Clinical Education Alliance, DKB Med, Daiichi Sankyo, Helio CME, Integrity CE, Medscape, Platform Q Health Education, and Talem Health. Our bronze sponsors: Answers in CME, XDev, Bonum Continuing Education, CMEology, Excalibur Medical Education, GibLib, Global Education Group, Infograph Ed, Integritas Communications, Iridium Continuing Education, Leading Learning, MedIQ, Partners for Advancing Clinical Education, Paradigm, PrimeEd, Peerview Institute for Medical Education, Vindico Medical Education, and Right Medicine. As always, there are two different ways that you can ask questions during CME Palooza. You can use the Horizon CME text line. Big thank you to Horizon CME, 267-6660-CME. Or you can also use the YouTube chat function. If you click on the Watch on YouTube link in the lower left corner, you will be able to enter your questions via the chat. I'll be monitoring both of those. We will be using Poll Everywhere for a couple of questions. You can either use the app, the Poll Everywhere app, and enter CME Palooza 005, or you can use your web browser and enter the URL on the screen. There's also a link on the live page that you can use that as well. And we will have a few questions. Okay, last one from me. Any opinions, discussions, and/or conclusions expressed are those of our panelists and do not represent an endorsement by or a position of their employer, its parent company, or affiliates. So with that, let us bring up the crew. All right, Michelle or May Green, I will turn things over to you.
Thanks, Derek. All right, listen up, you lot. I'm May, and I'll be your fearless moderator for this session. We're here to dive into the exciting world of Be Curious, Not Judgmental. It's not just a catchy phrase, mind you. It's a way of life. Now, I've got to confess something to y'all. This morning, I woke up and discovered that my accent had gone missing. I searched high and low. I even checked under the bed and in the biscuit tin, but it was nowhere to be found. I reckon it must have hopped on a plane to London overnight, chasing dreams of tea, crumpets, and a chance to miss the king. But you know what? Just like Ted Lasso, I'm not going to let a little thing like a missing accent stop me from giving this session my all. After all, it's not about the way we sound. It's about the passion we bring and the difference we make in the lives of our learners. So put on your virtual cleats, grab a cup of tea or a pint if that's more your style, and get ready to dive into some fantastic educational adventures. We've got an all-star panel of experts here ready to share their insights and strategies for creating engaging, effective learning experiences. Now, I know what you're thinking. May, what is all this curiosity nonsense about? Well, let me tell you. Being curious means opening your mind, asking questions, and trying to understand others. It's about ditching the judgment and embracing the empathy. We've got some cracking case scenarios lined up for you today that make you think, laugh, and maybe even scratch your head a bit. But that's the beauty of it. We're here to explore different perspectives and learn from each other. Throughout the session, we'll have some poll questions to keep things lively. So don't be shy, jump right in, share your thoughts. There's no wrong answers here, only opportunities to grow. Together, we'll tackle the mysteries, red cards, and speedy certificate seekers, all while channeling the spirit of Ted Lasso and his unshakable belief in the power of positivity and teamwork. Remember, we're all in this together. It's not about proving who's right or wrong. It's about understanding each other better and becoming the best version of ourselves. So buckle up and get ready to be curious. So let's get this party started. Believe and believe, and let's show the world what happens when great minds come together. So let's learn about our cast. David, why don't you kick us off and give us your bed test, Ted Lasso? Show us what makes him tick.
Well, there's a lot that makes him tick, but I've just been sitting around enjoying a little bit of this tea that everybody keeps talking about, and I gotta say, I always figured that tea was going to taste like hot brown water, but you know what? I was right. It's horrible. No, thank you.
Fantastic. Now, Brian, it's your turn. Let's see that classic Coach Beard stoicism. Make us lean in to catch every word.
Data.
Stunning. Hannah, you're up next. To channel that Rebecca Welton strength and grace, show us the boss we wish we all had.
Well, hello there. It's Rebecca Welton here, proud owner and sole owner of AFC Richmond. Delighted to be here in your company today, and especially grateful, May, that you had the good sense not to extend your invite to my lovely, charming ex-husband, Rupert. So thanks again for this wonderful opportunity, and thanks, Ted, for the biscuits.
You got it, boss.
Incredible. Amanda, it's time to bring the Keely Jones energy. Let's see that infectious enthusiasm and heart.
I am so happy to be here with this great team. I know that we are driven to do better, and my role here as publicist is to make sure that everyone knows how good we are doing and how great the team is.
Brilliant. Mike, give us the Roy Kent realness, grit, heart, and a whole lot of grunting.
I think it's so dumb that you made me go after my ex-girlfriend. I'm down here in Mexico with Danny Rojas. Football is life, over and over and over again. He's so nice, it's freaking annoying. He actually made me shave my beard and mustache, trim my eyebrows, so I don't get a stupid looking tan. I always wear black when it's hot down here. It makes me mad, but I'm always mad.
And last but not least, Andy, bring us that Trent Krim charm. Show us why he's the voice of AFC Richmond.
Well, thank you, May, and it was sure very nice of you to make me only have to remember one name. I'm just here to observe the story, record it, and report it, not to influence it.
Well, would you look at that? A cast of characters that will make you laugh, cry, and everything in between. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to dive into these scenarios and see what they've got in store for us. So case 1, high scores on pretests, taking the lead before the ball was even kicked. All right, my dear panel pals, listen up. We've got a real head scratcher here with case 1, and I need your brilliant minds to help me sort it out. Picture this. We have an online CME course that should have been a nice, refreshing pint of education for our clinician friends. But before they even took a sip of the main content, a whopping 70% of them aced the pretest, like they were the old pub quiz champions. It got me wondering, did we accidentally invite a bunch of know-it-alls to this party? Now, it's possible that our recruitment team accidentally rang up the old pals already at the pub, if you know what I mean. Maybe we ended up with a crowd that's been around the block a few times and didn't really need the basic stuff this course was actually serving up. If they were yawning through the pretest, the actual education might have fallen warm, flat beer to them. But hold on to your horses. It might not be that simple. Before we hear from our panel folks, it's time for you to put on your thinking caps and play a little game I like to call Pub Quiz Education Edition. We got a real puzzler on our hands with case 1, and we need your help sorting it out. So here's our first question. What do you think is the most likely reason for the pre-test perfection? 1, our recruitment team accidentally invited the old pals already at the pub. You know, the ones that have been around the block so many times they could have given us directions. Or 2, these clinicians are a bunch of lucky guessers, like they've got a secret supply of 4-leaf clovers hidden in their white coats. Or 3, the pretest was easier than getting a free pint on your birthday, and now we need to step up our game. Or 4, They're secretly all geniuses who've been holding out on us, and this course was just a chance to show off their big brains. So, what's it going to be, my brilliant friends? Lock in your votes and let's see if we can crack this case wide open.
May, I have some unfortunate news that my poll is not currently working. I'm going to need to refresh. So maybe we could come back to it in a minute. Oh, it looks like we're up, at least on the others. I may have to give you the answers, so people can respond now if they have a moment.
We better change your name to Derek Wanker.
I think that would be appropriate. After this question, I can refresh, and they will run better, I promise.
Somebody start drinking early there.
I think we can move on to your answer choices.
Okay.
Oh, that's the next question. Sorry.
Oh, nope, that's okay. We'll just go to the panel. So let's put our heads together and make sure this course is top notch. Ted, as the eternal optimist, how would you approach this situation to ensure all the participants, regardless of their pre-test scores, feel engaged and motivated throughout the course?
Yeah, thank you so much, May. That's a great question. You know, I think it's time to probably take a step back and, as Vanilla Ice puts it, stop, collaborate, and listen. So our goal here is really to be going out like Willie Nelson on a high. And I don't know how much higher learners will get when they're scoring that high on a pretest. And, you know, I feel like I'm saying high a lot. But you know, first off, I think collaborate internally. And you don't bring a gosh darn umbrella to a brainstorm, okay? You know, be open, curious, non-judgmental. Some things to think about. Do the questions reflect the audience's expertise? Maybe, maybe not. Has this education been covered to the same audience recently with other programs? Check in with the faculty and for additional guidance. You know, is this really still a gap in their perspective? What are their confidence levels pre and post? You know what? I mean, if I didn't have confidence, I would never have worn pajamas to my prom and ended up in jail the rest of the night. But that's a whole nother story. But my point is that learners need confidence. So what to do next? You know, my opinion, maybe possibly include more or different interactive questions with peer benchmarking to make learners pause and slow down and get competitive. You know, then Vanilla Ice might come back with a brand new edition of questions. See what I did there?
I did, Ted, and thanks for that insight. And Derek has pulled up the question, and so it seems that most of the people here think that the pretest is easier than the free birthday pint. So let's see what the rest of our panel thinks. Coach Beard, you have a knack for observing patterns and analyzing data. What strategies would you suggest for identifying participants that might have guessed correctly on the pretest versus those who understood the material?
Appreciate that. Ted, thanks for being so concise. So here's my thought there is, I guess you could guess that a lot of the guessers guessed right? If all we're looking at is the final results and we don't know the actual choices they made, the quality of the questions, it may be an easy pretest. It may be a pretest with 2 or 3 options, and guessing is a 1 in 3 or a 50-50 shot. Like a lot of the defenses that we used to play when Rebecca's ex ran this team. Some of them are like sieves. You can do anything you want moving that ball around the pitch. My guess is review the questions. They may not all be bad. There may be 2 out of 5 that are really simple. Validate, be agile, and run an offense.
Thanks, Coach. Roy, you're known for your no-nonsense attitude. How would you address the issue of participants who might have signed up for the course just for an easy win to stroke their egos?
Keep in mind, this was a high score on the pretest. You can't blame the learners. That would be dumb. You have to blame the activity developers. The people who developed this are clearly Muppets. So then what do you do with Muppets? You need to break into their house at 4 a.m., which, statistically speaking, is the hour people are least prepared to defend themselves. And then you stand over them. If you would all stop laughing, that would help. And then, as they sleep in their bed, you start to beat them with a thick, heavy rope soaked in red paint, pummeling them over and over again until they wake, confused by the paint with their own blood. When they beg you to stop, you laugh as loud as you can for as long as you can. And then you start to beat them again. What do these developers see in their needs assessment? Was this topic really a gap? Why did they choose this question in their pretest? Was the question too easy or just too obvious? Developers' fault.
Thanks, Roy. Keely, your marketing expertise, what kind of a follow-up assessment or practical application would you recommend to gauge participants' readiness to apply the knowledge gained in the course?
So these participants, they're smart. They know what's going on. They obviously answer the questions right. So how do we test them? Let's put them to the test with case studies. We have to follow up with them. I think it's important that we send them emails and communicate with them with a practical case that is challenging and really see if they actually were as smart as they claimed they were, or as that our data show that they were. That way we can tell everyone that our program really did make an impact.
Very good, Keely. Rebecca, as a leader who strives for excellence, how would you balance the need to accommodate participants with different levels of expertise while ensuring the course remains challenging and valuable for everyone involved?
Sure. And Keely, excellent points. And Roy and Ted, of course. Well, first things first, I think I would suggest tossing in a confidence question so we can really figure out who knows what and who's guessing. Second, I believe, this is where your interim analysis can really shine. Let's take a look at that data and again, figure out who knows what and tweak our content appropriately for our learners.
Perfect. Trent, as an investigative journalist who steps in, what steps would you take to uncover the underlying factors contributing to the high pretest scores, and how would you use these insights to improve future iterations?
Well, thank you, May. So let me dissect this curious case. Here's how I would peel back those layers. I would analyze the test data. So with the spirit of a thorough investigative journalist, I would meticulously sift through the test scores. The focus? Unearthing any unusual patterns or anomalies. Are there clusters of similar scores? Do certain questions see a disproportionate number of correct answers, suggesting either guesswork or knowledge? I would conduct a question review. I would delve deeper. I would scrutinize those questions that participants frequently answered correctly. The objective to determine whether these questions are perhaps too simple, poorly crafted, or maybe even too familiar with the participants. Who took my test? My investigation would not be complete without verifying the participants. And I would implement differentiation strategies. I would recognize the diversity in knowledge levels. I would propose adaptive learning paths for future activities. And I would propose tiered content, ensuring future courses and challenges, courses challenge and engage everyone, from novices to experts.
That sounds really in-depth, Trent.
I am an investigative reporter.
Trent, if you report on one thing that I said earlier, I'm gonna, where I'm gonna be at 4 a.m.
Bring it, Kermit.
So this question is open to the entire panel. Do you think it's necessary to pull down the activity and completely redo it, or what adjustments would you make to ensure that this activity and not necessarily future activities are beneficial for everybody?
Go back to the data. Everything Trent said, not everything Roy said, especially not what Roy said. I would do what Trent said. I would go through the data. If you've got 5 or 6 or 8 questions, it's more than likely that there's 2 or 3 of them that are significantly altering your data set. If you want to and can apply confidence-based stuff to it, awesome. You'll get 5 times the value of confidence-based assessments over traditional assessment data, not only in terms of additional stories, but in nuance. And if you can segment the population, you may very well find that high 70, 80% test taker is 65 to 70% of your population. And the rest of them are learning. Now you have to focus on those folks. Be agile.
And I would probably go back and look at the evaluation data too. If the evaluation indicates that this is a waste of time, then yeah, you might want to go back and redesign your activity. If not, if people indicate that they've actually gotten something from the activity, don't worry that too much about it.
Sounds like a plan. Case number 2, let's dive in. Tackling the 18-minute red card. Now, as much as I'd like to keep diving into the first case, we've got another fascinating waiting in the wings. Picture this. You're settling in to watch a thrilling 45-minute video lecture on the latest and greatest hypertension guidelines. You're on the edge of your seat, eagerly soaking up every bit of knowledge, but then something strange happens. At the 18-minute mark, you notice a mass exodus of learners. They're dropping off faster than Jamie Tartt's ego after a missed penalty kick. It's like they've suddenly remembered that they've left the oven on or have an urgent appointment with their favorite pub, the Crown and Anchor. This, my friends, is the case of the 18-minute red card. So what could be causing this mysterious disappearance of learners? Is it the content at the 18-minute mark as dry as a British biscuit? Is the presenter's delivery as monotonous as the metronome? Or could there be something else to play? It's time to put your thinking caps back on and join the investigation. We've got a real puzzler here, so let's have a quick poll to see what you reckon might be the cause. 1, the content became as dry as an old day scone as our learners couldn't stomach another bite. The presenter started droning on about a broken record, and our learners decided they'd rather listen to Roy Kent's post-game interviews on repeat.
They should.
This section was more confusing than trying to decipher Coach Beard's cryptic one-liners, leaving our learners fearing lost in the sauce. Or D, the 18-minute mark coincided with the start of a happy hour at the local pub, and our learners simply had to have their priorities straight. So what do you think, folks? Well, it seems as though the content might have been as dry as an old scone. But in second, not too far behind, is the presenter droning on like a broken record. So my esteemed panel, it's time for you to put on your thinking caps and let's dive into the mystery. What could be causing this mass exodus at the 18-minute mark? The game's afoot and it's time to score an educational goal. So Ted, as someone who believes in the power of positivity and engagement, how would you approach revising the content around the 18-minute mark to keep learners motivated and invested in the lecture?
Great question, May. Thank you again for all your help and and direction. I'd like to call this drill the Exorcist because it's all about controlling possession. Possession of learners, that is. See what I did? Yeah. Look, I like to look at this like a new challenge too. I mean, let's all look at it like a new challenge because taking on a new challenge is a lot like riding a horse, isn't it? You're comfortable while you're doing it, or if you're comfortable while you're doing it, you're probably doing it the wrong way. So probably need to investigate a little bit more about what the content looks like at that point. I tend to agree with the audience here. That could be a content issue. Not being super exciting. And while I love to motivate and help others strive to continually improve, I will say that learning new guidelines might not be the flashiest subject for learners. But you know what? They got to know it. They got to know it. So I love games. And so I think, maybe a solution here is doing some sort of interactive game. I like Limbo, for example. Great party game, horrible relationship status. But maybe it's time to interject a short matching game here. since this is a guidelines-based program, and break up the content, check in with the learners. More of this type of interactivity might just be the thing to break up the lecture and keep learners on their toes. Maybe even saying, I like it, I love it, I want some more of it.
That's real insight there. Coach Beard, you're known for your keen observational skills. What strategies would you suggest for analyzing the content and identifying potential trouble spots that might be causing learners to lose interest or become confused?
I appreciate that. I'm actually known for a lot of things, like spending most of my adult life alone. And here's my point. See, attention ebbs and flows. So even if our content was dry and boring, we have to recognize as the developers of this offense that we have to get ahead of those ebbs and flows of attention, right? Or lest they'll find themselves just like me, sitting on the curb outside a pub at 4 o'clock in Amsterdam, all by myself, trying to find a constellation in the sky. If we focus our energies on mitigating the ebbs and flows of a learner's attention, whether it's with a game, Ted, great point, bad lyrics, or whether it's with some other form of interactivity, or simply a change in tone or a change in pace of the presentation, we maintain that offense throughout the entire presentation, might be our best defense.
I would definitely agree with that. Keely, as someone who has a knack for understanding people's needs and preferences, what do you think could be done to make the content around the 18-minute mark more relatable and applicable to the real-world experiences of the learner?
You know, we know what we're doing. We're good at what we do. I think what we have to remember is the doctors, physicians, whoever our audience is, they know what they're doing. And what we want to do is get their attention. I agree with Coach Ted and Coach Beard. We have to pivot. And in my opinion, I think it has to be before the 18-minute mark. I think we have to figure out a way to get their attention so they're not droning out by the 18-minute mark. What does that mean? The gaming recommendation from Coach Lasso is excellent. I think get a patient story in there. We have to make it so they can relate to this. So how's a physician going to relate to something? Give them a scenario that they may encounter in their practice. And this is what's going to get that emotion going. It's going to draw them in. When you add a gaming component or some other interactivity, then it's just going to keep them engaged in the content. So by the 18-minute mark, they're ready for another set of guidelines to come and get their attention.
I like that insight, Keely. Roy, you're not one to mince words, ever. If you were in charge of reviewing the lecture, how would you give feedback to the providers to help them improve the delivery and to keep the faculty engaged?
The providers or the presenters?
Both.
Well, I got nothing to say to the providers. I was focusing on the presenters. Was Jamie Tart the presenter? He's an ugly, ugly boy, and that's probably why people left. First of all, I know what works. I know what keeps people engaged. If a presenter wants to tell me he knows different and he wants to do something I know won't work, I tell him I will try it once. When it sucks and I hate it, I'm going to hire a bunch of children to follow you around to scream, I told you so for centuries. That usually gets them to listen. You know, it's my job as an educator to make sure I work with the presenter. Of course, you know, the input of an expert or an expert panel is important, but so is their understanding of our activity. Especially if we're developing something more than just a didactic lecture, which is stupid, but that's what most faculty know. So, you know, it's different. If it's different, the chair has to know, here's why we're doing it. Here's our teaching points. Here's our format. Here's your role in it. Here's what we need you to do. If they can't or won't buy into it, find another bloke. As Ted reminds us with his stupid sign, believe. Believe in your instructional design.
I think that that's some very insightful information coming from you, Roy. Rebecca, as a leader who strives, Roy Kent, we actually have a question. Would you recommend yourself for speaker training for the faculty?
told you the important things that would get across to the speakers. But yeah, speaker training is important, especially if you have a different type of format, like a gamification format, and it's live, and it's got to be right the first time. Speaker training, if you want to call it during slide review or talking to them about how the thing works, they'll appreciate it, we appreciate it, and you don't hit that 18-minute mark and people are just bored out of their minds.
That's good. And that question was from the Horizon CME text line. If you have any other questions, we'll work them into the presentation. So don't hesitate to type those questions in. Rebecca, as a leader who strives for excellence and continuous improvement, how would you use the participation data insight to inform content creation for the future and ensure that every section of the lecture is valuable and engaging for the learners?
Right. Great question. So if we're noticing that consistent drop off, then of course, in the future, we have to reevaluate kind of what we're doing. In line with what the others said, let's definitely try to make this more interactive. Let's look at that gamification. Let's add in a case study to spice things up, or anything AI related. Let's kind of think outside the box because we're losing them for a reason. Similarly, as much as I hate to agree with Roy Kent, we may need to rethink our faculty. Just like with TED, we're all about finding the top speakers, not just the top writers and not those that are necessarily the most knowledgeable about a sport, but whoever can deliver the best learning experience possible.
I think that's very important. Now, this is open to the entire panel. Based on your collective experience, which is vast, what do you believe are the key elements of a successfully engaging video lecture?
Now, I could answer some of that. I think most importantly, you have to apply every element of your content to whatever it is they do. You have to apply it to the practice. I mean, Ted used to make us do some ridiculous drills in practice, but he always told us why we were doing it. For example, to work on trapping the ball, he would make us do an egg toss with raw eggs. You got to trap the ball, you got to take it down gently. Same thing with a raw egg, otherwise splat in your freaking face. If Ted didn't tell you why you were doing the drill, you'd just think he was some dumb cowboy from Kansas and ignore him.
Anybody else have any insight on what makes an engaging activity?
Keep in mind, we benefit from the fact that the human brain works in a way that always establishes itself as the protagonist. So as long as you can create a scenario or context or case, the learners are immediately going to put themselves into that scenario. It's a little trick that we can use. If you don't provide that context, if you don't provide that story, the learner has nothing else to do except watch all footy videos of Rupert's old team.
Trent,
Hey, I'm not sure. I don't like to hear journalists talk, but I'm not sure we heard from Trent on this one.
Oh, I don't think we did either. Trent, let's go back to you. How would you go about gathering more information to pinpoint the exact reasons of the learner drop-off?
That's okay. I'm used to standing in the background, and I completely understand.
Where you should be.
Come on,
As
Roy.
much as I hate to admit this, sometimes Roy is right. Speakers might need a Muppet incentive to improve, but we'll pass over that at the moment. I'll take a little more methodical approach to this. I believe it was Keeley who said, "We know what we're doing and we're good at it." And sometimes we are, and sometimes we're not. So I would start with a technical check of the video. Is there something going on technically that's causing that to buffer at a weird place? Is there something going on at that 18-minute mark that's causing people to like, this is too hard, and go on? If everything's fine, then we move on. We look at engagement metrics. It's essential to pinpoint the exact moment viewers are beginning to disengage. Are these drop-offs isolated incidents? Are they part of a broader pattern observable across multiple sessions? Are the same ones dropping off around the same time for every video? Or are other people dropping off a little earlier, a little later in this video? And then we'd review content delivery, do a content audit. We do a presenter review. Those presenters just stink and need the Muppet treatment. Finally, when we do figure out if anything needs to be revised, and we create a new segment. Do a little A/B testing and see if that 18-minute mark still holds true with the new content. If it does, something else is going on. If it doesn't, then that is, we've solved our problem.
Well, and I can say that this is actually something that I've seen at the Crown and Anchor. And what had happened was at the 18-minute mark, the faculty stopped talking about current practice and went straight into clinical trial data about agents that wouldn't be available to the clinicians for another 2 to 3 years. And it wasn't relevant to them. They couldn't use that information today in their practice. And so they just tuned out and dropped off.
One quick point, May, before you go on. Rebecca, do you remember when you and I explained to Ted Lasso that a half in football is 45 minutes long? And he's like, well, what? There's no timeouts? What? There's no commercial breaks? It's interesting that this is a 45-minute video, and people clearly around the world are more than happy to sit in front of the video screen for 45 minutes, and their attention stays exactly where it needs to be. So let's not necessarily think about it's 45 minutes, it's too long. The problem is the content you're creating.
And here's another question from the Horizon CME text line. Would you rather have a big name but boring faculty member or a lesser known but engaging faculty member? Who wants to jump in first?
Engage.
Keely?
I agree. Engaged, a lesser known but engaging faculty.
Can I do a yes and here?
Sure.
Keely, you know you need a big name to get people to show up, but then you need the engaging people to get them to stick around. So balance a senior faculty member with a name who may or may not be able to teach. Give that person the facilitator role, give them the microphone, and then bring your real teachers in to deliver the content.
I'll tell you, in my career, it's been sometimes the smallest parts of the play provide the biggest contribution.
I like
Coach
it.
Beard, that's the most I've ever heard you say it once. That was smart.
Wow, what an exhilarating discussion. You all really dug deep into case 2 and uncovered some fascinating insights. It's like you were a team of educational detectives leaving no stone unturned. Bravo, my friends. I think we can all agree that the 18-minute red card was a tricky one, but you tackled it with the finesse of a Premier League midfielder. Your ideas for keeping learners engaged and excited throughout the entire 45 minutes were absolutely brilliant. But just when you thought it was safe to put away your detective gear, we've got one more case that's sure to keep you on your toes. It's time to buckle up and get ready for case 3, the speedy certificate seekers. Imagine this. You're reviewing the activity data for your latest course, feeling pretty high about the completion rates, but then you notice something particularly peculiar. A whopping 38% of learners are blazing through the content faster than Rebecca Welton can fire a manager. It's like they've got turbo button hidden in their scrubs, and they're on a mission to collect that certificate faster than Ted Lasso can say believe. But speed really is the name of the game is speed really the name of the game when it comes to education? This case is all about understanding what's driving these speedy certificate seekers. Are they simply efficiency experts, or could something else be at play? Is the course content too easy, leaving them feel like they're just going through the motions? Are they under pressure to complete the course quickly to meet some external deadline? Or could it be the course design itself is unintentionally encouraging that behavior? It's time to put our best Coach Beard thinking caps on and unravel the mystery. So let's dive in and see what insights we can uncover. It's time. We've got a course that's attracting certificate seekers, but why? Let's see what you think. Is it A, the topic's so easy peasy that the learners feel confident enough to breeze through it like a gentle summer breeze? The course is being used to tick a mandatory box and learners just want to get it over faster than Ted Lasso can say believe. The course structure makes it easier for them to skip through the content than Roy Kent skips through the small talk. Or D, the learners are all secretly training for a speed reading competition and this course is their practice ground. So we've got a pretty close between structure is enabling them to skip the content and the course is being used to tick a mandatory box. And right now they're dead even. So let's see what our panel thinks. Ted, as someone who values genuine growth and development, how would you approach this situation to encourage learners to engage more deeply with the content rather than just rushing through for a certificate?
Thank you so much, May. You're wonderful, and I do appreciate you. Yeah, I think I tend to agree with the audience here. But there's two buttons I never want to hit. That's the panic and snooze. Unless I'm real tired, I might hit snooze. But but just like the other cases here, the truth behind this will set you free. But first, it'll piss you off. And I think this one's got a lot of questions around it too. It may not be just one type of learner rushing through this program, as we saw some of the responders agree with, but some will definitely be cert seekers. That's what I call them, and then some of maybe trying to fit in education between seeing patients or during lunch. I mean, heck, some may be clicking through parts where they think they're already an expert and they think they already know everything about it. But not knowing that there are new updates in that area. So that's just a few examples. But where I like to focus on maybe some questions here. How long is the program? How easy or hard is the content to grasp? And maybe that's according to faculty and maybe some learner surveys. But just like Zava, when he left our football team, we can't handcuff people and make them love us. So we'll always get those folks who are trying to push through the content just to get the credit. But maybe there are some ways that we can slow others down to think about what they're learning and explain or have a better explanation of what learners have to gain with this education from the start. So is the purpose of the education attention grabbing? Is it interesting? Maybe we could put some hard stops throughout the content for interactive questions that have to be answered before they can move on to help. Now, this may not help the cert seekers slow down, but it sure as heck may help provide a little bit more engagement, remind learners why they need to know this information, even when they think they already know it. So those are just a couple examples I like to throw out.
Thanks, Ted. Coach Beard, with your analytical mind, what data points or metrics would you suggest tracking to better understand the behavior of these certificate seekers and identify patterns or trends?
There's a couple universal truths. One of them is that you've never met a successful blind carpenter, right? If you can't see it, if you can't measure it, you can't build it. So the fact that we know that they took a little bit of time to finish a long program, it's a start. Ted, sometimes you ask questions and you learn from them. The first thing you do is get pissed off. Couldn't have said it better myself. The more you measure, the more you understand, just like that last case study, the fact that you knew people left after 18 minutes or that they stopped viewing after 18 minutes. It's phenomenal data. We can grow. We can learn from that. Just keep measuring.
Thanks, Coach. Roy, you're known for your direct and honest communication style. How would you craft the course messaging or instructions to emphasize the importance of truly engaging with the material without coming across as too harsh or off-putting?
Oh, reeking hell. I'd tell the truth, just like I did to you, Rebecca, after that date you had with that guy. The content was fine. That's it. There's nothing wrong with fine. Most content is fine. It's not about the topic, though. It's about why the hell you think clinicians want to learn about the topic. They want content that makes them feel like they've been struck by freaking lightning. Don't you dare settle for fine. You'll never avoid certificate seekers entirely. They'll always be there. But what can you say, or how can you say it, that makes them want to learn? That's our job, damn it. If you know that some wankers are going to skip ahead to a post-test, what can you do to teach them in the post-test? How can you make sure they walk away with the most important educational messages? If people think they know all the answers, make sure they prove it. And why not throw some key takeaways at them after the post-test?
That's really insightful, Roy. Keely, as someone with a keen understanding of the human motivation, what incentives or features do you think could be incorporated into the course to encourage learners to spend more time exploring and absorbing the content?
So let's think about applying a good publicist marketing mindset here and stop and get their attention. You know, how do we get people's attention? And when it comes to this program, we have to we can dance. We can put up pictures of me before I started my promotional and publishing back in my modeling days, or we can stop and do some reflective questions. I think giving a pause to the content and having a broken record now case scenario or a question that is going to have the clinician pause, reflect, and react, that is a great way to get them to stop and think. I think another way to have clinicians react and recognize the need for education is to have a comparison. Give them a scenario in which they're answering a question and they see how they've scored compared to their peers. You know, all of a sudden when they're realizing they're not as smart as they think they are and they're not performing as well, they might have an opportunity to stop, look, and listen and take notes.
Rebecca, from a leadership perspective, thanks, Keely. Rebecca, from a leadership perspective, how would you balance the need to accommodate learners' desire for efficiency with the importance of ensuring they acquire the necessary knowledge and skills from this course?
Great question. You know, well, I believe that just like on the pitch and in other parts of life, like with Dear Rupert, you can't avoid the cheaters. They're always going to be there, whether you call them cheaters or cert seekers like Dear Ted. But we still need to catch those who are trying to take those shortcuts. And one way to ensure those that we catch are at least getting the key teaching points is ensuring that at the bare minimum, we have a rationale on that post-test so they're able to get key takeaways. Also, again, it goes back to keeping your content cohesive so that way it discourages folks from skipping around. And at the end of the day, that keeps everyone on the same page and it makes things fair.
Thanks, Rebecca. Trent, as the investigative journalist that you are, what questions would you ask the certificate seekers to uncover their underlying motivations and gain insights into why they approach the course in this manner?
Oh, May, I think you've missed your calling and keep asking these wonderful questions. You should work for the Independent. We would go deep. We would ask the learners themselves. We would start there and ask them what precisely motivated them to enroll in the course. Motivation is a very important factor. Was obtaining a certificate the primary goal? If so, why did they choose this course over another course, or are they just doing every course that they're presented with? Seeking a certificate is not a bad thing. It's just a product of the environment of our healthcare system or the healthcare system of those across the pond. I would ask them, how would you describe your actual engagement in the course content? Were you actively learning? Were you merely skimming through all the requirements? And could changes to the course's structure or assessment methods have encouraged a more thorough engagement? If we had done something different, would you have been more engaged? Would you have taken longer to go through it? That's the beginning of what I would dive into the learners' information.
We have another question from the Horizon CME text line. Have you considered that maybe the clinicians are just super smart geniuses like Nate the Great and can do the activity really fast?
Well, May, that is a possibility, but I think it's important to make sure these clinicians know what they're learning and why. If you have data, probably from your needs assessment, that shows just how dumb they are about a topic, tell them how dumb they are. If you have patient data that says patients want better care and they think their clinicians are dumb, share it with the learners too. Nobody wants to be stupid, except Jamie Tart. I believe, and there's that word again, clinicians want to treat their patients better. Tell them how. Get your damn content right to the freaking point. Make every statement matter.
Thanks, Roy.
I can tell you is that with the exception of the wit and wisdom of Calvin and Hobbes, not much lasts forever. So, I mean, a lot of these folks, they're not going to remember a lot of these things. I wouldn't say that, well, heck, I can hardly remember what happened yesterday. So I think, this education that needs to happen over and over, I don't think it's always going to land the first time. So that's my 2 cents.
I may be hanging out with Ted a little bit too long, but there's some optimism here, right? Once you identify who those certificate seekers are, now you can enrich your data set. So instead of looking at your basic traditional assessment data with 38% of your learners or certificate seekers not really paying attention, now you can focus on those that were actually there to learn. Now that's going to teach you even more about your educational design. It's going to teach you more about your faculty. It's going to enrich the stories that we can tell based on the CME that gets funded.
So, Coach, are you telling us not to patch the airplane where the bullet holes are?
I love that.
Oh, so this is actually open to the entire panel. What, when you're creating a course and you're trying to ensure that it's going to be engaging throughout, what are some of the key things that you use to do that, to kind of prevent them from just rushing through and obtaining a certificate?
Keely, do you want to talk about cases again?
Coach, fear. She was my woman once. Back off, man.
Can you repeat that? My internet paused for a second.
Oh, how fortunate. What are the key factors that contribute to creating a course that's both engaging and valuable?
I am that broken record. I love cases. You have to get motivated. You have to motivate your learner. And if you're not going to motivate them with a didactic lecture, there's got to be another way to get their attention. At the end of the day, clinicians are treating patients. And how do you make it practical? A case is a great way to make it practical. I think that the use of any kind of innovation outside of a didactic piece is going to enhance that didactic section of your content. I don't think didactic has to be completely done away with, but I think that there's got to be a way to motivate the learner, showing them what they're doing wrong. How do you do that? With interactive questions, with a challenging case, with someone saying you're doing it wrong. Hopefully, if you're told you're doing wrong, then you're going to want to do better. That's the general mindset of, I think, a lot of people I'm around.
Right. Tell them they're dumb and show them why. That's what I said.
We all remember what the difference between andragogy and pedagogy is, right? It's the first 3 letters.
Well, really what I think you're talking about is prompt and constructive feedback. And the case is just a tool to be able to provide that.
Well, as we start to wrap up, I've got to tell you, developing this session was an absolute blast. It was really like assembling the ultimate dream team, and I couldn't have asked for a better cast of characters to bring it to life. First, we had the one and only Ted Lasso, played by the brilliant David Mullins. Their boundless optimism and words of wisdom reminded us that even in the face of challenges, a positive attitude can make all the difference. Next, we had the enigmatic Coach Beard, brought to you by the talented Brian McGowan. Their keen observations and analytical mind helped us unravel the mysteries behind each case. Of course, we can't forget about the straight shooting Roy Kent, portrayed by the incredible Mike Lepresti. Their no-nonsense approach and tough love pushed us to dig deeper and strive for excellence. And who could forget the effervescent Keely Jones, embodied by the delightful Amanda Kozerski. Their infectious enthusiasm and creative ideas and case studies added a spark of joy to every discussion. Last but certainly not least, we have, I missed one. We also have Trent Krim, who is portrayed by Andy Krim, probably the easiest connection to be made. And then we have the Rebecca Welton, played by the remarkable Hannah Collier. Their leadership, poise, and quick wit kept us all on our toes.
If
Together,
anyone has any beer left, sorry, cheers to May
Cheers.
for putting this together.
May.
You did a
Cheers.
fantastic job.
thank
You
you.
know me, I don't like to say positive things.
That's true. But this was a blast. So I think hopefully it was beneficial to all those that watched and watched on the archive. And thank you so much for being good sports. No pun intended.
A round of applause. Thank
And
you,
another round of pints,
Michelle,
please.
and everyone. I mean, that is hard to do, especially the amount of people on here and getting everyone involved. That was great. That was fantastic. It's not easy to be both entertaining and educational at the same time. So everyone has
How
to
many
know-
were on?
well, I can't tell you that. That'd be giving the secrets. I don't know, like 150 or so. I had to bring up my slides. Hold on.
I also have no respect for a grown man that does the Carlton. I just want to say that.
It's the Running Man,
The
Roy.
Running Man, Carlton.
Not what.
Oh my
not
God.
what-
Take my
Why
Sure,
did
slide.
everyone
sure.
have to do my ending slides? We're not done. So, a survey. If you have
Oh.
a chance, take our survey, please. We'd appreciate it. Oh, look, Andy took off his hair. Now the real secret has been revealed.
Do the damn survey, you wankers.
Yeah, do the survey, please. Or Roy Kent will come and punch you out.
At 4
And
o'clock in the
then
morning.
lastly, the next session, our last session of the day. If I can find it. Behind the scenes with CME. Ooh, a sneak peek. Enhancing learner engagement with dynamic design and activated and inclusive digital spaces. We have the longest titles of any CME Palooza, I think, ever. So that'll be starting right at 4 o'clock Eastern. Bring everyone back up again. Thanks, everyone. Panel, hang on for 1 second as I close everybody out. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Stick around for the last session.
Thanks, everybody.
I can do it end stream.